Project Wunderwaffe. Is it going to be a win or bin? Okay, so I'm not going to bother doing the readout of the Steam description on this one because I did actually do a review video of the prologue of this game when it came out a month or so ago, maybe a couple of months. The developer kindly gave me a key for the full game, which is due out on the 10th of October. So I have had the pleasure of playing it in advance, just to give you guys an idea of whether or not it's something that's worth you going out and grabbing yourselves, really. My last video on this was a bit mixed. There were some good things and there were some bad things. So I was actually really excited to get this game, just to see if they had improved anything that wasn't so great before, and had maintained some of the good things too. The opening screen of the game, just some basic stuff, just options as you'd expect, nothing terribly interesting in there, just whether or not you want to include the tutorial, the language, sound settings. That's basically about it, really. So I jumped in, started a brand new game in the hope that we would be experiencing something a little bit different from last time with the improvements made. Now, I still love the idea of the game, love the history, love the period. I really wanted to get stuck in with something a little bit different in terms of building this vast underground industrial world, in ultimately building these wonder weapons and using them on the three fronts that are advancing on you. You've got the eastern front with the Soviets, you have the northern front, or northwestern front I think it's described as, which presumably is from the British and the Americans, and a southwestern front, which I have no idea who that is because it's coming from Spain, and the Spanish were technically fascist, so I've got no idea about that one. Still perplexed. In principle, the premise of the game, amazing. I find it actually to be quite an atmospheric vibe to this game, a really immersive feel. I like the music, the buildings or the rooms themselves, if you zoom in enough, they do generate sound effects of the machinery, and you do feel like you could be there, and the chipping away in the mines, the noises do really immerse you into that environment, and it wins on that front for me. But unfortunately, it's genuinely where it stops, because this game is a bore. There's so much wrong with it, and just it's not enjoyable. I don't even get to build any wonder weapons because I'm in part so disappointed by, I don't know, a quarter of the way into the tech tree, and I'm just not inclined to carry on. I mean, it's just lost me, to be quite honest. I still find the camera controls quite clunky. You're supposed to be able to use WASD, and you can change that to move around, or edge of screen scrolling, or right mouse button to sort of quick grab and move around. But the whole thing is clunky. Sometimes the camera doesn't move, and then you try and use an alternative movement, i.e. the mouse button rather than WASD, and it just takes a while. Maybe catching up on itself is a little bit clunky in that respect, and it's not me or the machine, because this is the only game I have any kind of issue with like that. Everything else is fine, so it must be the game. I'm playing on all the relevant graphic settings, but the camera controls are just clunky and glitchy. There's something not right there, and there's no real way of changing that in the settings. Something so basic as well, really disappointing. The game contains no real animations. A bunker should feel lively. Whether or not it's an upbeat lively of happiness and joy, probably not. But there should be movement. There should be a level of humanity about it. But the animations are so poor, and they do not immerse you. Some of the structures show workers in them, but they don't do anything. They just either stay completely static, maybe one sweep of a brush in the same spot. They don't go over to another area of the room and sweep something else. Some of them, they just walk backwards and forwards, like a mental patient. Some of them just float. There's glitches where the actual human characters will just float in midair. It's so annoying. It's so inconsistent. Some animations, they will show you more than others, but no one really does anything. The people themselves, they look really pasty, pale, and I don't know, they look like albino burns victims is the best way of describing it. And considering Germany was supposed to be the apparent master race back then, these people are made to look really ill. They're awful. Please, just some better character designs here. Just make them look a little bit more like they're alive. How about that? Although saying that, I get actually that they might be slave workers, just as I'm talking. But then the people in the offices, who are definitely going to be German workers, they still look strange. So I think it is very much an over-the-board thing, and not trying to make people look ill when they're slave labourers. Yes, you now can delete buildings, which is superb. Couldn't do that before in the prologue, so I'm happy with that. As you go through the game, you can get some of the resources returned to you once you research one of the particular technologies, which is fine. But if you've got a building that has workers in and you demolish the building, the workers disappear and you can't reuse them. Now, is this because when you demolish a building that you have workers in, you should take the workers out, then demolish the building? I get that logic. But your workers just die. I guess that's what's happening, but nothing explains that. So I don't know if this is a glitch or if it's intentional. If it's intentional, at least make a point of making it known to the player that by deleting a building with someone in it will make them die and you've lost them. They still count in the total though. So say for example you've got 40 available workers, you demolish a building with 5 people in, you still have 40 remaining workers available. So I'm thinking it's a glitch. So something else which really is not right with this. You still can't remove tunnels or elevators. Once you built them, they're there. Maybe that needs addressing still, or if there's a reason for it, I can't think of a reason. If you can delete a building, you can delete a tunnel or an elevator. Sort it out, please. They've still got this really annoying sabotage thing going on. The thing about this is it comes up with a flashing thing on your screen. Sabotage is ongoing. Red, flash, bong, bong, bong. And the only thing that you could do is go around and find the sabotage room. It flashes in red, for God's sake. It's there in front of you. And then you click on the room, you click stop sabotage even. So how is this true to anything that would have happened? As I said in my last video, if anything or anyone was caught sabotaging a room, you would not just press a button and stop sabotaging. Something dramatic would have happened at the point of stopping a sabotage. There's nothing in here to make it dramatic or interesting. It's awful. Just do so. Just take it out of the game. It doesn't even need it. Just get rid of sabotage. It's pointless. Going back to the front lines that I said about, you need to move some of the items that you build. So you will use the infrastructure within your bunker to build things, whether that's cement or, as the game goes on, weapons, basic weapons, and then of course eventually your Wunderwaffe. And you're supposed to send these things to each of the front lines. So you pick a front line you want to send it to, you choose what you want to send, which is absolutely fine, but there's no idea what anybody would actually need. It just seems to be really random. Anything that you've got and that you can send, you can just pick and send. For me, it's wrong. I think you need something that would say this front line needs X, Y, Z. Because let's face it, the requirements at different front lines, if this was something a bit more real, each front line would need something different depending on how they're performing in the battle. Not just send what you like. And every time you send something, it pushes their line back by a couple of days. You basically got 45 days or something until they kill you. And that's your timer, effectively right there. And by sending them goods, you're adding time onto that to keep you alive a bit longer. But just make it a bit more interesting and actually have things that they need, and then you can target what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just building stuff for the sake of it. And the only reason why you're producing materials or things is for use in other things or buildings, or to send these things randomly off to the front lines. In a similar vein, in terms of goods and materials and things like that, there's a train that comes and delivers goods every so often, and you never get a say on what the train is delivering. It's completely random, also, I think. You don't get to know what it's bringing you in advance. Again, I can't see anywhere that will allow you to check that. And it's just flawed in that way. Surely there should be a mechanism to put in a little order. I'm short on this material. Please provide this to me on the next train load. But no such thing. You just get given stuff. I don't know whether it's supposed to be intelligent and it works out what you should have, or it's structured in a certain way. But at least explain it. Is there a way to know what it's going to do, at least, so you can prepare for it? The texture in the game is actually really good. I think overall there's loads of stuff in there, and if you read about what they provide you, there's some really cool sounding things that you can build, but it just feels really unorganized. I think, and the structure could be a bit muddled, what you need to research to unlock certain things, and some things you need to unlock multiple things to unlock something. And also you get like a sub research thing, and I explained this in the last video. If you want to unlock something, for example, production line, you have to research production first. Production just being a label, it doesn't do anything. It just means that you're now going to go down the route of being able to get a production line. What's the point in that? Just have production line in there as a research item. You don't need the ability to understand what production is before you can make a production line. It doesn't make any sense. It's just an unnecessary layer. I think perhaps my final specific point to make is actually what you can build in certain structures. For example, the cement room or cement factory or the production line, as I said previously, they can produce various different things based on having certain materials. Now, you can either choose to build certain amounts of them or an infinite amount of something. You just have to pick the item that you want and click on it, and you can stack them and queue them. And actually, this is an improvement on the prologue, because that was a massively, massively poor element of the game. And to be fair, I'll put that in the positive category. They've made that queuing system much better, but I feel to utilize it at its best, you have to have a room for every single thing you would ever want to build. So have, I don't know, if there's 5 things you can build in a production line, have 5 production lines, each one producing the certain thing. Otherwise, all you find yourself doing is having to go back in there and manually having to almost do things on demand. When you decide that you want something, go and get the thing that you want. It's very much almost click and collect, so to speak. But this kind of goes hand in hand with that thing I was saying. There's no target of needing something because the front lines aren't demanding a specific thing. So it's like, well, what the hell am I doing? Just all very muddled. I mean, overall, it's a disappointment for me. It's not horrific, because there's a lot of reasonable ideas there, and the atmosphere is there. So, it's not the worst thing since sliced bread, but it's just not captured me in the way I wanted it to. And so I can't really give this a high score.